Welcome to this podcast from Stratfor, leader in global intelligence.
Hello and welcome to Stratfor. I'm Colin Chapman. A British judge is to decide whether three men accused of plotting to blow up transatlantic airliners should face a third trial. Ibrahim Savant, Arafat Khan and Wahid Zaman, all in their 20s, were found not guilty of plotting to bomb aircraft, but jurors at a London court failed to agree whether they were guilty of conspiracy to murder. The British government's chief prosecutor has now demanded a second retrial into the case. The plot in August 2006, in which other men were convicted, caused chaos to international aviation and prompted the current restriction on bringing liquids on board aircraft. This has prompted questions as to whether al-qaeda is capable of mounting any more terrorist actions and whether the continued tight security at the world's airports still needs to be maintained. Scott Stewart is Stratfor's head of tactical intelligence, and he's talking with Marla Dial.
What we've seen since 9/11 is that the U.S. and its allies has been able to strike al-Qaeda successfully and has been able to really reduce the group's operational capacity from what it was prior to 9/11. While we haven't been able to take out bin Laden or al-Zawahiri to this point, the apex leadership of al-Qaeda, they have been able to do a lot to dismantle the group's operational capability. They have been very successful in taking out really the second and third level of leadership of the core al-Qaeda group. And this has really led to a transformation from al-Qaeda, the group, to al-Qaeda, the movement. And so we have the core group out there, which is weakened considerably from what it was prior to 9/11. We also have an array of regional franchises that really span the globe, everywhere from Jamaah Islamiyah in Indonesia to al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and to al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb in northern Africa. We also have what we call grassroots jihadists. These are the do-it-yourself terrorist operative wannabes who are running around and also don't have the skill of the core al-Qaeda guys, but who are plotting attacks. And so really between these three different actors, the al-Qaeda core people, the franchise people, and the grassroots jihadists, there is a capability to carry out small attacks that don't require large numbers of operatives or large quantities of explosives. Now, while aircraft have become harder targets in recent years because of security upgrades and new security measures, there are still vulnerabilities there. But the other part of the equation is that striking airliners, especially airliners that take off from overseas destinations headed to the United States and U.S. flag aircraft, is a way to strike the U.S. without actually having people on the ground in the U.S. to do so.
What are some of the tactical shifts that you have observed over the last 8 years that are giving you concern today?
Really, the progression goes back beyond several years. It goes really back to the mid-'90s with the whole Bojinka plot and kind of the start of that fixation on aircraft and the jihadist plots to take down multiple aircraft at the same time. That progressed on through the 9/11 plots, which involved multiple aircraft. And then in more recent times, we saw the shoe bomber in December of 2001. And in the summer of 2006, we saw the plots to take down multiple aircraft out of the UK using the liquid explosives. So there's been that progression. At the same time, we also saw a progression in jihadist circles from attacks that did not involve suicide operatives to attacks that do, with what we saw in Richard Reed. And so they are now using suicide operatives, which is something they weren't doing in the mid-'90s. So combining these modular explosive devices out of Bojinka that we saw in the 90s, the suicide operatives like we saw with Richard Reed, and then some of the new techniques they're using to try to smuggle explosives onto aircraft or into other places, whether that means using liquid explosives to construct modular devices while a suicide operative is on an airplane, or other ways that they could hide these devices. I still believe that there is a vulnerability there, and I believe there is still a will there to attack aircraft.
Scott Stewart, Vice President of Tactical Intelligence, talking there with Marla. I'm Colin Chapman of Stratfor. Bye for now.